Hi, I'm Jay, and today we're going to add some hair and tinsel to those stinger hooks we tied. Stay tuned. We have my, what did we do, 12 dozen, 6 each of the 1/2 and 6 of the 5/8 Barumba with the stinger hook. We're going to add bucktail to this, and this customer, we are doing a special color for him. He wants not just the stinger hook but also tinsel, and this is a 3-color pattern. It's a black, green chartreuse, and white. So it's a real pretty jig. I've never fished this. He's taking it up north somewhere, northern New York State, or maybe across the border even into Canada, but he mainly is a walleye fisherman. So to begin, like always, we're going to start with our dark color, which when the jig is out of the vise will be the back of the jig. So I'll start with our black. We're going to snip it with our barber shears with the serrated edge. I'm going to first remove all the broken hairs and the fuzzies that are at the base of the hair. Then I'm going to switch my grip and I'm going to stack this by hand. Just aligning those tips, taking out the longer hairs and placing them back in my pinch. And on this vise, I'm going to measure the hair, the length of the body past the bend of the hook, which ends up to be about the end of this silver part of my jaws. So I can measure. If I don't like the length of it, I can switch my grip and change my pinch. When we do a 3-color jig, the proportions of the hair will not be a third, a third, and a third. Some of the proportion will be dictated by the quality of the hair, the characteristics of the tails, or the color even. So we're starting here with black. With this black back, and all the hair is about the same. There's the thickness of the fibers between the tails is very similar. I think the black and chartreuse is a little bit more of a straight. It's grown more straight, a little bit less curled as compared to the white. The chartreuse and black is also a dyed tail, and the white is a natural white. But the proportions that we're doing with the 3-colored bucktail today is the black is about 50%. If I was doing a 2-color jig, it'd be the same size pinch as I normally would make for a 2-color jig. And then this chartreuse, because it's bright, I'm actually making this pinch a little bit smaller, a little bit thinner. And though it doesn't seem like it would look nice on the jig, once we're done, it'll look just fine. It'll look great. So again, I'm gonna after I've added about 6 strands of the Flashabou silver tinsel, I'm gonna take my chartreuse pinch, measure it out, snip it close to my fingers, and then I lay it in place with 6 wraps. I gave it a press just right on top, just to make sure that the hair was on there firmly and spread out on both sides of the hook shank. And now we will add the white. As I mentioned, this tail is undyed, and the hairs have a little bit of a curl to them, a little bit of a waviness, but still relatively straight. so that the hairs won't clash with one another. They'll look like they all belong together. But this pinch is not quite as thick as the black, but definitely a little bit more than the chartreuse. And because of this curl, this tail, this white, they have hairs that look all about the same length, but then if you kind of comb them out with your fingers, kind of pull them, and the tips, there's some tips that are actually a little bit longer. So once they're wet and you're fishing this jig, you don't want any of those longer hairs causing you some short strikes. So the walleyes will come up on it, they'll feel the back edge of those hairs and bite maybe too short if the hairs aren't all aligned. So took a little bit more care in straightening this out, but now we can measure it here. Again, I put my left hand up just so I can see where all the tips end. Just easier for me to see. If my hand's not there, I'm my eyes try to focus on the tabletop as well, and I just want to look right here at the vise. So, switch my grip. As always, this left hand the pinch is tight, very, very tight. Now, that was just 9 wraps. What I did is I locked it on and I walked the thread back towards the bend of the hook, 4 or 5 wraps, and then I brought it back to the other side of the wrap. So now, just to show the camera, I can let go of it. That's on there nice and tight. The hair's on there nice and tight. And I'll finish this off by walking the thread back up to the head with touching wraps, back about 2/3 towards the bend of the hook, and then I'll walk it back to the head. As always, to make a nice pretty collar, I've got a piece of scrap thread of a different color, about 15 inches long and folded in half. I place it underneath my last wrap, and then I can, with touching wraps, I take the thread back about halfway towards the bend of the hook, and then I walk it back to the head of the jig to help create a cone shape. Snip my thread, put it through the loop, and I can trim my tag end. Let's do another one. Just like with the crystal flash in the previous video, to help place this tinsel onto the jig, I wet the tinsel in my mouth like I'm about ready to thread a needle, just to keep all those strands of tinsel together in one piece. Another tip on tying on the tinsel, you might have noticed that when I was about to lay the tinsel on, more than likely I either walk a wrap back or walk a wrap forward, just to bring the thread to the center of the collar. If it's too close to the head of the jig, sometimes it'll push the tinsel to the side. But if you take your wrap to the center of the collar, it'll lay a little bit nicer on top of that tinsel and tend not to push it around the shank of the jig. Again, we're going to measure. And here I just fixed. After locking that chartreuse on, I just lifted it slightly and straightened out the tinsel just to align it, make it parallel with the shank of the hook. That's a pretty jig. And there you have it. That's how we finish those stinger hooks. 3 colors of hair and some tinsel. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like what we did here today. You can follow me on Instagram at JayIsOutdoorsy. And until next time, tight line.